So a guy can become a girl with no physical changes at all.
Oh, that's called gender fluid.
So I can be a woman on the court and a man in the bedroom. I can't believe it. Nice!
You mean when you're sleeping?
Yes.
Hello everybody, welcome back to Screenstars. I'm here today to bring you my review for the 2023 comedy Lady Ballers. The film is co-written, directed and starring Jeremy Boring, and it stars Daniel Considine, David Cohn, Blaine Crane, Jake Crane and Tyler Fisher. And this is the first comedy made by and produced by the Daily Wire, who is co-founded by Jeremy Boring, who directed and stars in the film, and made famous by people like Ben Shapiro in the US. And it's kind of like, I don't know, a company that kind of pushes back against political correctness and all that crap sort of thing that we have to put up with these days. And this is a comedy that focuses on transgender, I suppose, and male athletes identifying as female athletes and competing in women's sports, making it unfair for women athletes who are born as women. Now, this is a controversial subject anyway, and the Daily Wire has kind of grasped this with both hands and decided to make, really to show, I suppose, how ridiculous this really is by kind of making a comedy out of it. So what we have here is a character called Coach Rob, played by Jeremy Boring, who 15 years previously was a successful basketball coach. And now he's kind of a nobody. And then he stumbles on the idea of getting his former basketball team together 15 years later and convince them to compete as males identifying as women, competing in women's basketball and other sports as well. This gains them national notoriety on all the time. Coach Rob starts getting a terrible feeling that he just might not be doing the right thing. Right, what are my thoughts on Lady Ballers? Well, this is the kind of, I suppose, edgy comedy that we used to get all the time years ago. And we've got to kind of now rely on companies like the Daily Wire to kind of deliver us, you know, comedies or broach subjects that other people aren't brave enough to do, I suppose. This sort of thing you would get years ago. You know, hands down, you'd get a comedy like this years ago. Even the guys like at Broken Lizard, who you know, made like Super Troopers and other films. This film, in a lot of ways, reminded me of the work they used to do. It felt like definitely a piece that they would definitely have put together years ago. Is this edgy and, you know, controversial? No, honestly, not really. I actually found this film to be quite entertaining. It's not as edgy and controversial as, number one, it pretends to be, and others will try and pretend it is. It just isn't. It takes, as I've said, like a real life subject, a controversial subject in the news of sport, and shows it, like I said at the beginning, for the ridiculousness and the ridiculousness of the situation that it is. It just does not make any sense. You know, male athletes competing in female sports. It's just not fair at the end of the day. And this shows it for what it is. However, the trouble I think with this film is it's kind of a one-trick pony. It kind of keeps playing the joke over and over again. It doesn't necessarily know what to do with the subject matter. Obviously it makes fun of it initially, then it keeps doing it. You see these male athletes competing in female sport, doing all sorts of different sports like wrestling and weightlifting and all that kind of stuff, even baseball, and obviously basketball, and they trounce them in all of them. but beyond that's about as far as it goes in regards to edginess and jokes. Beyond that, it's kind of it's run out of ideas, and it kind of does loses its steam by the end. By the end of the film, it kind of gets really ridiculous. I mean, it's always ridiculous. The whole situation is ridiculous. The whole premise is ridiculous. But by the end, it does get to a point where you're just kind of like, what on earth are they actually doing now? It really isn't making any sense. And then they do the usual formulaic thing that these comedies tend to do, and smear honey and treacle all over everything by the end of the film. So it follows a very defined pattern, and I'm not here to say, I expected it to kind of stick to its guns by the end of the film. I would have kind of hoped maybe for a little bit less of a predictable ending, because what we've got here is a comedy made by people who are trying to kind of get a message out there that, we're kind of sick of this woke culture. We're sick of all this rubbish getting thrust down our throats. And please just entertain us, you know what I mean? Entertain everybody. Don't just worry about the minority of people that may find things offensive. Just entertain us and audience members, and we will watch and enjoy. But I think it doesn't follow through with the message, this film, if you like. It takes it up to a point, and then it kind of stops, and then follows a very particular formula by the end of the film, and tries to give, a message about it's not right, and, we've learned our lesson, and all this kind of stuff. So it kind of becomes very, very tame by the end of it. But I'm not going to lie, I had more than a handful of chuckles watching this film. I thought it was delightfully entertaining at times, and just the absolute ridiculousness of the premise of the film makes it funny, and it just really knows how to poke fun at a subject matter that every time I see it on the news, when they talk about female athletes, male athletes identifying as female, competing in female sports and things, it's not right. It doesn't feel right, but nobody's kind of prepared to say it, that it's right. So I thought this film did a good job of kind of really making fun of a subject that is just ridiculous in every way, shape or form, but it doesn't necessarily break the mould in edgy comedy or anything. That, we've had comedies like this before that have done it better, been funnier, and, it didn't kind of decide by the end of it to kind of pander to its audience sort of thing, or kind of take its foot off the throttle pedal, if you like. But this is certainly entertaining. If you get an opportunity to watch it, and you kind of feel like many of the sane people in the world, that, the world is kind of going crazy these days, and we do need a palate cleanser like this type of film occasionally to remind us that the world is going absolutely crazy. Give it a watch. This will probably trigger some people terribly. Probably those that have got a serious problem, or, just no sense of humour anymore. Definitely not the funnest film you're going to watch, but definitely a palate cleanser at the same time. So worth checking out, guys, if you get the opportunity. If you're looking for a different kind of comedy, give it a go. I certainly had some fun with this one, so thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this review. I'll be back with more reviews and content on the channel very, very soon.